Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Cucchiara, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome in, Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you again for those that continue to follow the show and download the podcast, but also more importantly, share the podcast. We have many, many thousands of downloads a month. We appreciate that. Also, before I forget, I want to thank those that reach out, email, text, call me during the week. We're starting to pick up the momentum again with the podcast. Most of you know that have been following the show. It took a bit of a hiatus and back now doing the podcast again. And the focus for those that may just be listening to it for the first time or not for a while has always been education information. So the way I've grown this podcast and my business in general is inform and educate and build relationships with those consumers, those who I do business with, and that's what we do on the podcast as well. So one of the ways we do that is have great guests on that provide us with great content, valuable information for what's going on in the real estate market in many different ways. As you know, we work with real estate agents that help you buy, sell. I'm on the mortgage side. We work with people who help investment properties, CPAs, tax planning, and financial planners, and much more. So today we have a special guest, McGee Allen, who is going to be joining us from Next Level Property Management Academy. And I'm going to bring him on. Excited to have him on the show because what we're doing, what he's going to talk to us today about is property management, but from a entirely different level. Most of you might know, if you've been fortunate enough to buy some investment property, whether it's 1, 10, or multiples, and McGee has certainly worked with people with hundreds of those different properties, but bringing a new program to the marketplace to really help those investors that are managing investment properties not only more effectively and efficiently, but even more importantly, to gain more profit as well. So welcome in, McGee. Good to see you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, good to have you. Why don't we get started? Tell us, our listeners, McGee, a little bit about your background, some of the successes you've had in your business, and then tell us a little bit about what prompted you to start this business. It's super exciting, and we're really happy to discuss today.
Sure. Excited. So started out like every other young boy growing up, being a kid, wanting to be in property manager when I grew up, like everybody else, standard stuff. It actually started out in reality, more simply. My uncle owned a very large luxury property management company in the Bay Area in Walnut Creek, actually. And when I got done with college at UC Santa Barbara, went to work with him, fell into it very quickly. And that was in 2002. So I've been doing this for a very, very long time. So I started out working with him at single family homes. And what I didn't realize, and most people don't realize, is that property managers are more than, the guy in apartment number 1 in the undershirt. That's what most people think of property managers. It's the guy that has, the building, and he lives in the first unit, and he's the guy from Coming to America. If you remember that movie where they went to
I do.
But it's so much more than that. And I kind of learned doing that. And I was up there in the Bay Area for years. And then I started my own company in a unique way. And I went down to visit a friend in Los Angeles who was one of those, super high speed talent agents. And I was floating around in the pool with one of his clients who was some actress. And she said, "Oh, you're in real estate. Can you help me?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm in rentals. I'm in the Bay Area." And she said, "Well, I'm in rentals too, but I can't find anyone to help me." And I said, "Well, what do you need? What are you looking for?" She said, "Well, I need a rental for 13. And I said, "13 what?" She said, 13,000. I said, "You can't find someone to help you with a $13,000 a month rental?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Great." Went back to the Bay Area, told my uncle, said, "Good news, I'm leaving." So moved with the family down to Los Angeles, started my own company in 2014 called NZO Property Management, and really set up our own kind of individual niche, or however you say it. We were specialized in high-end luxury property management for single family homes. So nobody else is really doing it. There's 10,000 property managers in LA, but they mostly focus on multifamily. So did that for about 10 years, ended up selling that company. We grew it from zero, sold it, which was great. And in the process of that, building the company and learning everything I learned about owning a business and running a property management company is that most people don't know that property managers exist, and the ones that do, they really generally run into the bad ones. Most of them are, if you think about the totem pole of real estate, property managers are pretty low in the totem pole, and it's generally for a good reason, because they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So sold the company, and then took a couple of years to kind of just do some other projects, and then got very, very clear on the fact that just because I was out of it doesn't mean that it wasn't still a very huge need for most people. So started a second company called 𝗥𝗱𝗨𝗧 Estate Services back in Beverly Hills. But in the process of that, I was thinking about scaling, and this goes back to your question about, Next Level Property Management Academy. I can only help those that are in my immediate area. And
Right.
so if you don't live in Beverly Hills or Malibu or one of the surrounding areas, there's no way for me to really reach you. So I was thinking about a way to kind of train other property managers around the country to help them come up to speed to really take care of their clients better and their customers better. It's a very stressful business, and if you don't do it right, A, it's a disservice to your clients, and B, it'll run you ragged. So rather than me flying all over the country trying to teach property managers how to do it, I realized it would be much better for me to go straight to the consumer. And so I developed a course at Next Level Property Management Academy to teach landlords themselves how to run their rental business like I do, except they don't have to have a property manager. They learn my system that I've had for almost 2 decades that works in every level, to learn how to run their rental business.
Yeah.
Right way. I mean, because that's really what it is. It's a business, and people think that, I buy this rental property and I just collect the rent and that's it. But it's a lot more than that. It'll put some age on you.
It's a great concept. We're going to dive in and talk about it now. And the reason I could speak to it, McGee, and for our listeners too, is that I've been doing this show for 12 years, over 1,700 shows. And I can tell you that a majority of them are people talking about buying investment properties, specifically outside of California, let's say, with which a lot of the listenership was. And the one thing that would come up all the time is people's hesitation would be the same, would be like, God, I'm really interested in investing in property and managing property, but I don't know the first thing about it. It makes me nervous. How do I trust someone in another state? What do I do if the plumbing goes bad? What do I, all these things that you became an expert at and you really fine-tuned and brought to a success level. So this is extremely important in my mind, because I hear this all the time from people. And if they could take your knowledge, which you put into place now on this academy, and if I'm not mistaken, the concept really is to have them go online, sign up, and in essence, they're going to get your brain trust all in these different levels of the academy, so that they could not only put the pieces together to run a successful property management, but even more importantly, like you talked about before, to hopefully gain more profitability through that effort.
Absolutely. So as far as I can tell, in almost 20 years, there's 2 options for landlords. You can either pay a property manager that's probably going to let you down, probably cost you money, at minimum be a pain in the backside, and you pay for that privilege, or you try to run it yourself, and without the proper training, you end up, kind of beating your head against the wall, because there are problems that come up that are inherent to every type of property in the world. I mean, you're going to have the same issues no matter where you are, what type of property it is. So I kind of equate it to learning how to fly a plane. I mean, the pilot has to learn the checklist in order to get that plane ready for takeoff. And if you follow the checklist and you have the knowledge and you implement the systems, because property management is just a matter of implementing a system, but having the right system and the right knowledge behind that system is going to make or break your experience as a landlord, and either make it a profitable experience or not. So it's really, the academy goes through all of the things that I had to learn the hard way. And it goes through all of the biggest fears, because the landlords are always worried about the same things. Am I going to have a good tenant? Are they going to pay rent on time? Are they going to do damage to my property? And is this going to be a problem for me? And if you don't do it right, all of those answers are going to directly impact not only your bottom line, but your sanity. If you're getting a call of your water heater exploded on Christmas Eve or Hanukkah or Easter or whatever, and you don't have the systems in place, that's going to be a tough phone call.
Yeah. Take us through what a consumer is going to see, and we'll give the website. What's the website, first of all, and we'll take us through, tell everybody the website, and then if you would, kind of take us through step by step once they log in and what they could expect to see and how long does the course take, and then do they have access to you personally, your expertise, or to reach out to you? Tell us a little bit how that works.
Sure. So you can find the course at Next Level PMA, like Property Management Academy, .us. And the course it's just a sequential, there's 23 modules, and each of those modules goes through every element of the property management process, starting with how do you select a good tenant? What do you need to have in place before you even look for a tenant? Do you have the right insurance in place? Do you have the right coverage? You know, is your entity set up properly? One of the things that happened to me when I was young and just starting my company is I didn't realize that as a business owner, because that's what you're doing when you own a rental property, you own a business, is you need to set up a separate address. So when your tenant is upset, they don't come knocking on your front door, which happened to me. I had a tenant who was completely insane come banging on my front door with my wife at the time and young kids who were there, and he really freaked him out. And I realized at that time, I was like, holy moly, I should have set this up with a different address, obviously. So all the things that happened to me over the last 20 years, I put into this course so they don't happen to our clients. And, you know, one of the biggest fears, like I mentioned, was how to find and screen a tenant. A lot of times landlords or potential landlords think that if they just call a potential tenant's current landlord, that's a good enough reference. But really, if a landlord is dealing with a difficult tenant that they want out of their rental, they'll tell the new landlord whatever they want to hear. You need to go to the previous landlord because that person has no skin in the game, and they'll give you the actual information because they don't have anything to worry about this guy or gal staying. Setting it up from the beginning, I mean, you really establish the relationship at the beginning of the interaction with the tenant. And a lot of times you can tell what kind of tenant it's going to be by how they are at that first meeting. So you need to set the tone as a landlord of what kind of landlord you're going to be. And it essentially sets up the boundaries for that relationship. So if you're on time, you're dressed professionally, you're respectful, your sign looks good, the house is clean, you're setting the expectation for what you expect of that tenant. Conversely, if you notice that your appointment's at 1 o'clock, the tenant rolls in at 1:15, hasn't called, hasn't texted, that's not a good sign.
Right.
And you can kind of do these little tips as, you know, kind of gauging how considerate they're going to be. Take your shoes off at the front door and then see if the tenant at minimum asks if they should take their shoes off too, because this means they're paying attention and they're also going to care for how you care for the house. They are more likely to care for it that way too.
Right. And I'm guessing, again, knowing so many people that have investment property and the headaches that I hear, this is going to be a huge success, not only for you and your company, but more importantly, your success is driven by other people's success. And that program is going to do that, help people achieve that. And I could tell those investors that are out there listening right now, and I know there are a lot of investors listening to this show. I know there's a lot of real estate agents and people in the industry that listen to this show. This is going to be extremely important for any kind of a future of really building a portfolio of investment properties. I mean, as you would acknowledge, McGee, you've been through this yourself, but what I see too myself with the hundreds of clients that I've worked with investment properties is, you know, they're not the person that's got this mega investment group with 600 properties and they have all these people running around helping them, right? The average person, which I'm guessing is your program is going to help succeed, would be the person that's either buying their very first investment property or someone that's really trying to build a portfolio and buy, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 plus properties over a period of time and have the confidence to build that wealth of real estate, or at least that portfolio of real estate, and start to manage it in the most efficient way possible. And I mean, we hear stories all the time. I know we could spend 4 or 5 shows just talking about the horror stories of property management. And I think that's really sometimes it keeps people away. But in your system, my guess is, of course, nothing is perfect and nothing's going to be, you know, foolproof, but it's as close as you could get if they follow this guideline in terms of setting themselves up to succeed, right? I mean, no matter what we do, in my opinion, right, we prepare ourselves the best we can and we hope for the best and we work hard and make those things happen. And by getting this program and this enrolling in this academy, my guess is people will be able to give their best chance to succeed in this property management business.
I mean, it's like having direct access to me and my
Right.
team for a fraction of the price of the
Right.
monthly fee that we normally charge. But there's 11 million mom and pop landlords, individual landlords in the
Wow.
country.
Wow.
11 million. And out of those 11 million, 0 of them have ever gone to a cocktail party and go, oh my gosh, you guys, let me tell you about how great my tenant is. He pays rent on time every month and he keeps the house immaculate and he added a hot tub to it. It's, oh my gosh, you won't believe what happened with my tenant. It's this horror story that they all have, universal. Avoiding that is my number one goal. Not only my personal, brick and mortar business, but with this academy, I want to give people the skills so that they can sleep, so that they can make more money and not worry about it. And that comes with knowing the systems that are in place. And as you mentioned, scalability. Having one rental property is like having a really tough job. Right. 2, now, when you start to grow and you start implementing these systems, because the systems are all the same, whether you have 1 or 10 or 100. Right. So, I mean, they just scale with you. So vendors, having the proper network, how to find vendors, how to utilize them, how to make sure that when those calls come in the middle of the night, that you're not looking on Google at midnight to try to find a plumber, you're toast. I mean, if you've waited that long to figure out who your plumber is, it's a wrap.
Right.
So we set you up to make sure that you're out ahead of it and making sure that you're prepared for whatever phone calls come. But the other most important thing is your lease agreement, because when in doubt, the lease agreement can always be the bad guy. If you're not an assertive person or you don't like conflict, you can always go back to, as long as your lease is in place and a good one, you can say, oh, geez, tenant Timmy, I really would love to help you, but page 6 of our lease agreement says X, Y, or Z, so I really can't do it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair to either of us not to keep our agreement. So as long as you have a lease that's written properly and a strong lease, which is what I think module 11 is in my course, is we go through how to write a lease agreement, because a lot of times people don't write the lease agreement and it gets themselves in trouble.
Right.
It's an unenforceable lease, or they're not protecting themselves. And part of that is a 3-page proprietary addendum that I've created over all these years in property management that most people don't think about. And it may seem odd and a bit trivial, but it all adds up. So one of the items is, if the refrigerator goes out for whatever reason, the tenant acknowledges that the owner is not responsible for the contents of that refrigerator. Well, why? Because one time in 2019, I had a refrigerator go out and the tenant demanded that the owner replace all the contents of the food. I know for sure it was a ham sandwich and a Diet Coke in there. I mean, this is nothing crazy. But, without this agreement in place and the acknowledgement in place, the guy came back for hundreds of dollars of, spoiled food. So one thing that I've learned over all these years is that people can really simplify their life by, getting a little bit of knowledge and putting these systems in place.
Yeah, perfect. Well, we're going to dive a little bit into the market. Let's see what your thoughts are about that. Before that, so again, the website, and then what does the program cost? And I'm guessing when they come on there, any questions they could directly or indirectly through text or email interact with you if they have any questions within the program.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. So the website is www.nextlevelpma.us, and there's 3 different programs. Actually, there's 4. So there's the forms only. If you just want the lease agreement and all the proprietary forms I have, that's $75. The course itself with all the video instructions, that's $297. And then there's like a mid-range course too that involves some group coaching plus the program and the forums. That's $597. And then $997 is 3 one-on-one sessions with me individually. So if you have questions about your specific problems, I'm there to help you guide through, whatever challenges you may have. And there's a lifetime money back guarantee too. So if you go through it and you're like, this wasn't for me, then it's no problem. So there's no real risk. I just want to make sure that people have the information. And specifically actually for your audience, I want to make sure that the folks that we're reaching are able to get as much help as they can too. So I'll put, when we're done here, I'll put a GEM, we'll call it GEM Mortgage 15 discount code, and they can get, it'll take 15% off for your audience.
Perfect. Okay. So just so the listeners, when you're listening to the podcast later, GEM Mortgage, that's I'm sorry, I always want to say GEM Mortgage 15, GEM Mortgage 15. That will allow you to get your discount on McGee's program here, and it's super exciting. Next Level Property Management Academy. Before we let you go, it's a little bit of, I mean, being in this market as long as you have in this business, you've probably seen cycles, ups and downs, ebbs and flows. What would you, how do you look at the real estate market right now, maybe specifically to investors? Do you see people staying as is, maybe holding off, sitting in the background for a while? How do you see the market in 2024?
I think what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to become accidental landlords with rates the way that they are and the market the way that it is. I
Good
think
point.
a lot of folks that were planning on exiting the market aren't going to be able to, at least for the price that they wanted to. So they're
Right.
going to look around and go, geez, no one's buying my house. I can't sell it. I can't really afford to move because my rate's at 3%. If I move, it's going to be
Right.
at 6.5%. So they're going to turn to landlords. They're going to rent it out, and they won't necessarily have planned on that. But when they look at the landscape of what their reality is, I think a lot of people are going to be, it'll be more beneficial for them to rent it out. So they're going to turn into accidental landlords, even though that wasn't the plan. There's been a huge release of multifamily units, which I think, depending on your segment of the rental business, multifamily is going to drive prices down a little bit, but single family, just in terms of options for potential tenants. So, if you're in a 1 or 2 bedroom condo, you're going to be competing with some of the bigger apartment buildings that are coming online now, depending on where you live in the country. I think prices will stay the same generally, maybe come down a little bit, but the demand is still going to be high. I mean, you've got a lot of people coming into the rental market because they simply still can't afford to buy a house.
Right.
So it is still much cheaper to rent than it is to buy, and that'll drive renters back into the rental market, which will keep it steady. So the good thing about owning rental property is, yes, it's cyclical, but it's cyclical like this. It keeps going up. It dips a little bit, but this is the United States. I mean, things are expensive here, and housing is we are in a housing crisis. And
we are, and there's still shortage, which is hard to believe. And I'm not sure, they're always trying to play catch up. It have been for a while, and I've said for the last 25, 30 years since I've owned real estate too, is you always, no matter what changes in the United States, the economy, what we do, how we operate, where we work, what business we're in, we need a place to live. Right? Everybody needs a place to live, whether you own, rent, and so that will stay as commonplace. So once again, give out the website, McGee, and then let us know. So we're going to use GEM Mortgage 15 for those listeners. Again, GEM Mortgage 15 to contact McGee. Go to the website and share again with the website. And on the website, I'm assuming if they need to reach you, they can find that easily as well.
Yeah, they can. Or my cell phone too. I mean,
okay. Why don't you give us your cell phone too?
Yeah, for sure. It's 310-614-7627.
Okay.
And I'm happy to help. I mean, if you've got a question, I have been doing this for so long. There is very little that I have not seen. So if you've got a question, call me. I'm happy to help and, answer any questions you have and make sure you're on the right track, because it's a tough business. I mean, I took a 4-year vacation from property manager to go to Iraq with the Marines, and I found that was easier than property management. So if you're in the business, or if you're a landlord that's just starting out and you're running into some problems, just give me a call. I'm happy to help.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service in both areas, not only the Marine, but also now property management. And people will do, I'm sure, the same. Well, thanks for spending some time with us, and we'll have you on maybe in the next couple of weeks again to get kind of an update, a refresher, see how things are going, and see how many people we could help here. Great product. Again, McGee Allen with Next Level Property Management Academy. McGee, thanks for spending some time with us. We'll have you back on in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. It was fun.
All right. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you again for all those tuning in. Remember, you go to share the podcast with friends, family, co-workers as well. You can reach me, same location, area code 408-838-9060. That's 408-838-9060 or joe@reradiolive.com. Thanks again for tuning in today. Take care.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit 𝗟𝗡radiolive.com. That's 𝗟𝗡radiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at 𝗟𝗡radiolive.com.